Chapter 13 is all about getting you introduced to the white, privileged, high society, upper class, racist, and judgmental people that existed. Okay, so through the book, we've had a lot of different people that you've met that represent things. And I've tried to tell you those as we've gone along the way. Atticus is a good, moral white man who only sees people. He doesn't care what color they are. Um, you met Miss Maudie. She is a white person who is just kind of the voice of reason for the kids. She doesn't really put across her political views or anything, but I'll just tell you that she is one of the fair um, white people who they want equality, but they're not really willing to go out and work for it themselves. Okay? Um, you met Miss Stephanie Crawford. She is the town gossip. She is white. She is prejudiced. She is racist. She's another one who is of that high society, white women who are very prejudiced. Um, who else? You've met the Cunninghams, who are white people, who are good people. They don't have much, but they do the best they can with what they have. You've met the Yules. The Yules are low down, awful, nasty, immoral, rude, mean, lazy. I don't like them one bit. Um, that's who they are. Who else have you met? You met Mrs. Dubose, that older generation, against what Atticus is doing. So another person who has that racism and that prejudice. Okay, so now we're going to get Aunt Alexandra, and Aunt Alexandra, ooh, she really is your stereotypical white Southern woman of the 1930s with all her judgment, with all her racist thoughts, and all of her I am better than you type ways of thinking. Okay, so you learn a lot about the Finch family and who they are and what Aunt Alexandra expects. Like, she's got some high expectations out of her family of what they should do and how they should act. She's constantly making comments about, oh, that's just part of that family. They got a drinking streak in them. And, oh, well, they do this because they got a stealing streak in that family. And, she's constantly talking about the different families and, labeling them, and things like that. One of the ways that she judges people, whether they are fine folk, is how long they have lived on their land. How long they have owned that plantation is basically what she's talking about. And the Finches are fine folk because they've had that plantation and it's been passed down from generation to generation, and the wealth that comes with it. And so, this is how she judges people, how long they've lived on their land. Well, stop and think about it for a minute. When you use that as your source of judgment, especially in the 1930s, you're talking about you're talking about people who are maybe two generations removed from the Civil War, which means that black people being slaves, they didn't own land. The first generation of people who are free, who are no longer slaves, they don't own land either. You don't just all of a sudden go from being owned by someone as a, a thing, not even a human, their possession. You don't go from that to all of a sudden owning your own land. So it takes a generation or two before people are able to save up the money, before they're able to buy their own type of house. And, this is what gets passed down from generation to generation for them is nothing. They don't have anything to pass down. So her using that as her judgment is just another way of white people holding black people down, of oppressing them, because there's no way they can meet her standards of being fine folk because they don't have any land to pass down. And it's kind of funny because Jem points out that, oh, well, then the Yules must be fine folk by your definition. Remember, the Yules are the nasty, low down, gross family? He says, well, they must be fine folk because they've lived on that piece of land right next to the town dump for as long as anyone can ever remember. You know, he points out part of the flaw to her logic. Okay. Aunt Alexandra is not pleased with the way Atticus is raising the kids. She has come there to try to guide them and lead them and make them into what they should be, because they're just not following the etiquette rules of high society, especially Scout wearing her pants. She should be wearing a dress. And so she's come to save them, to help them, to train them and guide them. And yeah, she fits in really well. It's like she's lived there forever. She just immediately jumps into being a part of society and going visiting and having ladies over for tea. And so she's not lonely and she's not bored. She fits right in with the other high society women of the neighborhood. That's chapter 13.